Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. This will be my second segment working with fingering charts and what they are. And I hope you'll be able to remember some of the things I went over on the first segment on the fingering charts, because you need to remember that they show the fingering of every note that an instrument can play. And they're not songs. It's for informational use only. Although some people have tried to play them as songs, that's not what they're intended to be. Now, we went through a number of instruments, and I showed you some of the fingering charts for those instruments, and we didn't have time to complete it, so I'm going to start off from where I left off last time. And where I'm starting today is that bass recorder. I have a bass recorder. I've had it in on some occasions, and I'll be bringing it back again, but I didn't bring it today because I had too much to carry. But it is like 3 feet or so long. It's very, very long. It's a very large instrument. I love it, and this is a nice sketch of it. And you can tell that it's a folded bass, because if it was a straight bass or a soprano straight bass or great bass, as they're sometimes called, you would have them standing up a little higher, and there would be a piece of metal tubing that would come down the side and curve out a little, and that would act like a mouthpiece. You don't have that on the great bass, or on the folded bass. On the folded bass, it's like a regular type mouthpiece. And if you look at the top of this, you can see that this would be the mouthpiece sticking out like it had gone out to one side. Well, at any rate, this is the mouthpiece. There's no bocal. That metal piece that comes out from the larger ones and kind of goes to one side, it's called a bocal. It acts like a mouthpiece. This is a regular mouthpiece. It's like a regular mouthpiece for any recorder. And what's good about this instrument, this drawing, it talks to you what the joints are. Like, this is the head joint. And then it'll talk about, if you look over here, the labium, which is right here, which all recorders have, the window, which is a little square part on top. I'm going to take my regular recorder and show it to you. Here's a regular recorder. The labium is this kind of oblong opening here, and there's a little place that's going to appear to be black, but the air comes out of that. That's called the window. And this whole thing is a bore. This is a head joint. All of this, and I've shown it to you before, but all of this is part of this instrument. Now, what you don't see is the fact that it does bend. You have a head joint, and it is folded. That is, it is bent. That's why some people confuse it to be a special kind of saxophone, but it's not. It doesn't play like a saxophone. It doesn't really look like a saxophone, but people get confused on that. This will show you where your fingers go: index finger, middle finger, third finger, which is right on a key. And then these instruments do have some keys, because it's so large you would not be able to play it without keys, because your fingers couldn't stretch. And so here's your foot joint right here, and it's a very beautiful instrument. And I love it, and I bring it when I can, and I use it when I can. But that's like a diagram of how you position your fingers, and in that way it is like a fingering chart. It just does not go and tell you exactly how you finger all of your notes. You need another chart for that. Here's the flutophone. Now, the little flutophone, it's really a nice drawing of a flutophone, and these are that is the fingering chart for the flutophone. The flutophone only gets 1 octave. The beautiful thing about this is the fact that this looks very much like a recorder fingering chart. They look very much alike, but you've got to remember that many of the melody flutes, there's a remarkable similarity. You have your hands in a certain position, and the keys, the tone holes pretty much go straight up and down. Not exactly, but close. And so here's the flutophone fingering chart. I'm glad I found that. I save a lot of stuff. Sometimes I misplace things, but I have that. So let me turn this. This is my own fingering chart. for a recorder. And in this particular fingering chart, I'm not showing sharps and flats. I'm just showing the basic notes and how they're fingered for the C major scale 1 octave. And the reason I did it this way is that you know for sure this is the mouthpiece or the mouthpiece area of the recorder. This is going to be the bell or the bottom part where the foot joint is. And these little places, these little dots beside it, that's the thumb hole in the back. And we are working on a basic scale, B, A, G, F, E, D. That's what we're basically working on. And so I want to show and emphasize those notes of one single scale. I do have a small keyboard here, and I can, when we get to it, show you where the notes are on the keyboard. But that's kind of my own rendering of a fingering chart for the C melody recorder without the sharps and the flats, just the basic notes. Here's a picture of the recorder. You know how I got this? I went to a place that has a photocopier in town, and I decided people need to see what the recorder is and how you can get your notes. So I went ahead and I just put it, you can see my hands right there. It was rolling around. I had to hold it so it would roll around. And it came with a reasonable picture of it. I've shortened it, of course, because it's so to make it possible to get the whole thing in. There's your labium, there's your window, the fipple mouthpiece, the head joint, all of the tone holes, of which there are usually 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be 6, even though it has a division and there are 2 little holes. And this is the 7th. It has a division, there are 2 little holes. The reason that you have these 2 little extra holes is the fact that helps you play sharps and flats of the lower ones. Now, if I show you this, here is one of my German instruments, and it doesn't divide. I don't know if you can pick it up because it's dark colored, but there's no division of 2 little holes on that fourth and on that last couple of notes. It's just 1 hole. But the more modern instruments, this is pretty old, divides it in half for the purpose of being able to get sharps and flats. The sopranino has 1 of those divisions. Now, the sopranino is the smallest recorder that's used for playing, and you can see that lowest hole is a single hole, not a double, but the one above it is a double. So when you see the doubles, it's always for the purpose of playing sharps and flats in the lower register. Now, this is a sopranino, so it's going to be pretty high pitched, but they are like that. So that's, I can go by that. Now, when I was making a fingering chart, just exactly what does it look like? Well, the holes for the instruments are not, strictly speaking, straight up and down. There is a little variation. This one is a little bit more to the left, and there's a variation in the size, too. These are smaller. So you can get some size differences, and you can get some differences in terms of how they're placed, so they're not strictly speaking up and down. When you do a fingering chart, however, you're not probably going to account for that. You're just going to have the holes up and down. So let me show you, as I was fooling around with it, my German instruments would look like this because they're not up and down straight. And this would be another German instrument, but you have the 2 holes. But there's a difference in the size of the holes, and there's a difference in the shape of the holes, and a little bit their location, because they have to accommodate the size of the fingers. But usually what you get when you get a fingering chart is this, straight up and down, and you have the line after the 3rd hole. These little holes on the side are the thumb holes in the back that you don't normally see, so they're placed on the side. The reason you have 3 and that you have that line there, that separates the left hand from the right hand. So the left hand, and I'll just pick up one of these recorders to show you, you've got three fingers on top. Your thumb is on the thumb hole in the back. That's not visible, so I put it toward the side. And then the other 4 fingers are the right hand. They're all used. Now, what do you do with your thumbs? Well, the left thumb is on the tone hole that's used in the back that's used for octaves. Your right thumb is just resting on the back for balance. It's not doing anything in particular. What about the little fingers? This little finger on the right will play some of the lowest notes, the sharps and flats of the lowest note, but this little finger on the left isn't doing anything. It's just staying there. And that's how the recorder is designed, and that's how many of the other melody flutes are also designed. So when you get through, you get something like this: 3 on the top, the 4th being in back, that's the thumb hole, and then the other 4 on the front. Now, and what I did was I made this little design so you can tell what's the top and what's the bottom, and this is the left on top, and this is on the right-hand side toward the bottom of the instrument. Now, by the time you do all of this, you're basically playing a scale. So what I did here is I took B, C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C, and I can open that up and go down to the low D, and I have the fingering chart for every one of those notes. We'll be getting into those later. But if you were stuck and you didn't know how to finger it, you could say, okay, I'm playing this E, how do I finger it? There it is right there. And because it's a high E, you use your thumb hole as an octave mechanism, and you notice it's only half dark. Half of it is light, and half of it is dark. I just colored in just half of it, but not all of it. And when you get to the B and the C, this is the B, it's all colored in. By the time you get to the E, it's only partly colored in. And this D right here, you don't use it, so it's clear. You don't need that thumb hole closed for when you're playing the D. So I can teach people that way as well. Now, let me just flip this. This is a scale, a C scale. I'm not going to bother with any of this. This isn't where we are today. But C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's 1 octave. Now, the recorder can continue to go up 1 more octave, but we're not working with that now. So I go up to that C, and then I go back down again. And these notes, B, A, G, F, E, D, what we have been working with are right here. These are the lower notes. Now, it'll show up in other scale work that I have. Here's another fingering chart I made. I like this one. It starts with a low C, which is the lowest note. This would be a middle C if I had a piano here. It has a ledger line through it. That's one way you know. It's halfway between the upper and the lower registers, but everything's covered. Every single tone hole plus the thumb hole is covered. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. There's the octave. And I put the D in, which is 1 note above that, and then starting and going back down, here's the D, C, and here we have it, B, A, G, F, E, D. Those 6 notes that we're working on, which is basically part of the scale, starting B, A, G, F, E, D, with all of their fingerings. And you notice that there are 2 fingerings for the F. That's because some instruments are Baroque and some instruments are German, and they have a different fingering for the F. So one of them will be appropriate for your instrument, whatever it is. And how would you know if you have a Baroque instrument? Well, you would take a look at the back of the instrument, And I don't know if this is visible. I have shown it before, though. There's a little tiny B right above the tone hole in the back. That B stands for Baroque, and you use the Baroque fingering patterns for that instrument, which are a little bit different than the German fingerings. The Baroque instruments are a little bit more difficult to play, but there's not much difference. And the good part of it is that their intonation is usually perfect. So most people do end up by playing Baroque instruments, but there's not that much difference between that and a German instrument, and this German instrument has no B on the back. There's nothing written on the back, so you know it uses German fingerings. It does not use regular Baroque fingerings. That's the way that you can tell. Now, I know I'll repeat this off and on. Some scales get pretty complicated. I'm not going to have you do anything like this, but you could if you took enough time to learn it. You know, here you have high F sharp, and here you have a C sharp major. They're really very complicated, some of these scales. We won't be getting into that, but I want you to see it. Now, for this, here we have the middle C right here. Here we have another C. Here we have another C. And here we have another C. Now, this is the middle C. It is halfway between the bass clef, which would start here. I just didn't extend it out. And it goes to this octave. Now, your tonettes, flutophones, song flutes, instruments like that will play that one octave. And then you go from here to here, that's the next octave. Your flutes, your recorders, ocarinas, penny whistles, sasutos, they can play from here to here. They have a 2-octave range. Now your flutes, regular flutes, can play another octave up. They could go up to here. The piano goes up another octave beyond that. So you can see the piano has a good 4-octave range from a C. The flute has a 3-octave range. Sasutos and recorders and penny whistles have a 2-octave range. Then when you get to the 1-octave range, you do the flutophones, tonettes, and so forth. So that's the ranges of the instrument. And naturally, they all have fingerings. And if you're looking at fingering charts, you would see there is always a difference here. Now, in looking at this, I've got to watch my time a little bit. Different scales start on different notes, so they have a different key. What the flutophones and basically what the recorders and sasutos and penny whistles can play. Here's your C scale, no sharps and no flats. Here's your B, A, G, F, E, D, right there. And the key of G has 1 sharp. F is the sharp. Even though this scale is in the key of G, it is not G that's being sharped. It's F that's being sharped. And that's because all major scales have whole notes and half notes. And the way that they're spaced, and I don't have time to go into it now, but the way that they're spaced, the F is going to be sharped. And it is starting on the key of G, so it's called G. 1 sharp, F sharp. The key of D, 2 sharps. It starts on a D, and you have your F sharp and you have your C sharp repeated. The other thing is the key of F, which has 1 flat, so it's not a sharp key. It's a flatted key, and the key of F has 1 flat. It's a B flat. And you play that. Now, if you're looking at the whole scale, here's your middle C right here. This is all going to be right-handed notes, melody notes, and these are all going to be left-handed notes, which are going to be bass notes. And if you see a piano, and I'm going to try to bring in maybe next time a keyboard so you can see all of this so it'll make sense. And the scale, D, I left the low C out, D to G, and back down. And so you have that B, A, G, F, E, D. There's a reason why I'm focusing on those notes. And the reason I'm focusing on them is that it's the easiest way to learn how to play. If I give you an instrument and you want to play it, the first note you're going to play is going to be that B, and then it's going to be followed by that A, and then it's going to be followed by that G, B, A, G, then followed by the F, E, D. And when you do that, you've got 6 notes, which is almost a full octave, not quite, but almost a full octave. An octave is 8 notes, and 1 note repeats the first note. So, but it's the easiest way to learn how to play, and most instructors will do that. You will get 1 note, and you'll play that 1 note, and you'll play that 1 note until you can't stand it anymore, and then you'll add other notes to it. But we start here because it is the easiest way to learn how to play. And you'll notice these notes here are really a repetition of these notes here. So you have D, E, F, G, A, B, which is really the same as B, A, G, F, E, D, but it's reversed. But you don't play it like that because you only play music from left to right, not right to left. So it's repeated over here and in a natural way, and that's why we choose that. That's why I choose that. I hope this is making some sense. If you were to, I'll just go over this quickly, but I'll repeat it next segment because we're running out of time. Here's your C, the way it is on the piano. This is the way that it is sketched out on your staff. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then I can follow this all up so you have the 2-octave recorder range with all of the notes and all of the places that it appears on a keyboard. Why would I want to do this? Because I love using a keyboard to show people how notes are related to each other, how they interact with each other, and how you can get music from them. So we've gone a little beyond the stage of fingering charts, but next segment I have a whole set of fingering charts that I have done myself using a picture or a sketch of a recorder that I have made, and I'm going to be showing you then. So we'll have one more segment at least on fingering charts and what they mean. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.